Hello and welcome to The Point After. I'm Nate Wimberly, joined by Jorge, Andrés. It's a somber day in the sports world with the completion of the Super Bowl. No more football until August, but plenty to talk about the next few weeks and months, and we have to start with a recap of the Super Bowl. Kansas City gets the win over San Francisco 25-22 in overtime, the seventh longest game in NFL history.
Look, leading up to the debut of this show, we talked about the Super Bowl. I personally have the San Francisco 49ers winning that game, the Chiefs covering the 1.5-point spread. Nate, what did I say? Good teams win, but great teams, they cover. The Chiefs did cover the Niners. They did not pull off the victory. It was a close contested game in this one. And look, if I'm talking about how this game really started, how I saw this game playing out, you have to talk about the script that most offensive coordinators, the script that most head coaches, they go in with 15, 20 plays. They got to say, what did I say when we did the pregame show leading up to this? You got to establish the run if you want to beat this Kansas City Chiefs team. They tried to do that with Christian McCaffrey, which, by the way, Christian McCaffrey was running it down their throat in that first drive. About 4 minutes into that first quarter, what happens then? Christian McCaffrey coughs up the ball. Now, I'm not going to go sit here and blame everything on Christian McCaffrey or anything like that, because fumbles happen. That's a great defense. The issue here was, I think that spooked Kyle Shanahan, because that 15-play script, that 20-play script, that established a run so that you're not chasing Patrick Mahomes, or so you're not at least keeping him hanging in there. That is where he deviated the ball. Christian McCaffrey didn't really make an impact and touch that ball again until close to the second quarter. So to deviate away from your structure of what you open up your pass lanes for Brock Purdy by establishing the run, just because there was a fumble on that first drive, was massive. Massive for the San Francisco 49er team. Why? Because at the end of the day, and you mentioned this, Nate, and you're right, we both talked about it. At the end of the day, if you have Patrick Mahomes against a Brock Purdy, you're going to put your money on Pat. And that's what Pat showed you. 4th and 1, 6 minutes into that overtime game. Great play call by Andy Reid, but Patrick Mahomes, a winner, wants the game ball in his hands. He took it in his hands, he got that first down, and then that led to the eventual touchdown with Mecole Hardman. The game would never have been that close if you stuck to your game plan, stuck to the script. Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, deviated away from it way too early, which then caused that game to be contested the way it was.
Look, I don't really have a play that was a game changer. I just say the Niners simply let Kansas City hang around. The CMC fumble on the first drive. One of the best offensive linemen in the league, Trent Williams, had some penalties early on in the game. And yes, the missed extra point. It was just, to me, those were the key things that kind of happened that let this game San Francisco had them where they wanted them. They took their foot off their neck.
Yes.
And they gave them a little bit of life. And when you're playing good teams like the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and trust me, I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, they had New England dead to rights.
Right.
And you let them have a little bit of a pulse.
That's it.
And that's all it took. And San Francisco let them have a little bit of a pulse, and they let them back into that game.
If I'm a quarterback, Nate, and I throw you the ball, you drop the ball, guess what? The next play, I'm throwing it right back at you to get your confidence up to stick to the game plan. They didn't do that. If CMC fumbled, they said, oh no, now we got to figure out and change our things. Stick to what works, because that's what's going to open up the pass game later.
And I also think in the third quarter, with some of the play calling from Shanahan, they got away from the run in the third quarter. And I wanted to look up the stats. Their offensive numbers in the third quarter, it just wasn't good. So I think the third quarter was an opportunity that they let it get away as well. But all that said, San Francisco still had a chance to win this ball game.
They did.
Questionable to why you take the ball first in overtime. Maybe they didn't know the rules. I didn't know the rules, and everybody else was like, oh, so what are the overtime rules? What are the overtime rules? So a lot was going on there, and I just believe San Francisco shot themselves. With all that, and just like I said, with all that said, they still had a chance to win.
They still had a chance. And like you mentioned, look, these overtime rules, they were new this year. This year are the new overtime rules where both teams get the ball. Now, why would you limit yourself to just 3 opportunities versus 4 opportunities? If you let Kansas City have the ball first, you literally have 4 opportunities because you have that 4th down to keep going. But if you have 3, then if you take the ball first, you have 3 and you have the decision to kick a field goal. To your point, if somebody didn't know the rules, that is a massive failure, because how can you not be in the Super Bowl, in the biggest game of the entire season, and not know that new rule change?
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I have no idea why they did that, and you're exactly right when you say, look, it's not like you're boxing, an amateur boxer or something like that. You got Mike Tyson in the ring, and you don't want to let Mike Tyson hang around because he's going to knock you out, and that's what Pat Mahomes did.
Now, and I also want to do this. I want to give the Chiefs defense credit for not allowing the Niners to get more points and get this game out of hand. So, you know, yeah, it sounds like we're down it on the San Francisco 49ers, but the Chiefs defense did a great job of keeping San Francisco within arm's length reach.
Yes.
So that, you know, once Patrick Mahomes
Yes.
gets going and that Mahomes magic starts, and you knew it was going to come because they could never get away from him. And even if they would have got away from him, Patrick Mahomes is just so great that, you know, sometimes, you know, he gets hot and you never know. But that Chiefs defense did a great job last night.
Nick Bolton, Chris Jones had phenomenal games. We talked about it. Slow until you know. Don't overcommit. Don't go chasing a play because of the redirection. Nick Bolton quarterbacked that defense from that middle linebacker position better than anybody I've seen in a very long time. You were 100% right. Credit to that defense that kept them in that matchup.
Yeah, right now we're going to bring in our live guest here, Scott Fowler from the Charlotte Observer. Scott, thank you for joining us here on The Point After. What are your feelings and what are your main takeaways from Super Bowl 58?
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me get in on the ground floor of The Point After.
Come on in.
Show number
That's
2,
big.
there you go. Come on in.
That is big. You got nowhere to go but up for guests.
Stop, man, stop.
My thoughts on that were, I understand what you're both saying, but I think Kansas City won that game more than San Francisco lost.
Absolutely.
I think they had Mahomes is Tom Brady and reincarnated, basically. I think he'll end up with half dozen of these. And he was just really too good. Now, in terms of a very interesting question on the overtime, because I, too, had to be refreshed on the rules. However, I did read what Shanahan said after the game. The reason he took the ball was because here's the difference in college. It's not like possession for possession all the way through. It's like you get it, we get it, and then the next time it's sudden death. So if they both had like matched field goals or touchdowns, then San Francisco would have had the ball with a chance to win on the 3rd possession. Nevertheless, I do understand what you're saying, Jorge. You know, it would be nice to know. I would like to know if I need a touchdown to match.
Correct.
It was an unusual sequence, but ultimately, I thought what happened was right. I picked the Chiefs before the game by a touchdown in the paper, and I thought that was. I mean, honestly, I was surprised they were behind as far as they were, or as long as they were. But they finally kind of got it resurrected at the end, and the guy who's the best in the game did what he does.
What do you think about the former Panthers that were in this game, CMC and Steve Wilkes? How do you think things
Well,
worked out?
yeah, I mean, it was crazy to watch. I mean, Harrison Butker also kicked.
Exactly.
Correct, yes.
Exactly.
And, you know, never actually kicked in a real game here, but they chose Graham Gano over Harrison Butker, which at the time was a controversial decision even then. And Butker has turned out to be one of the 3 best kickers in the league. He was unbelievable last night. Longest Super Bowl field goal in history. He was awesome. I thought McCaffrey, as you said, should have gotten the ball more. He was still really good. I mean, he
was. Why
like
deviate?
I don't know, because he was their best weapon.
100%.
I would have given him the more, you know, even Sam Darnold was over there on the bench, I think, over the 49ers. Not a good day for the 49ers. And I'll tell you what, Steve Wilkes had a winning game plan, and if the 49ers had not kind of messed it up, Steve Wilkes would have a Super Bowl ring. At the end, yeah, Mahomes is going to get you, but they allowed 19 points in a regular season game. You got to figure your offense is going to score 20.
Exactly.
They only gave up 19 to Mahomes. Now, finally, Mahomes is like, oh, nobody's going to win this? Okay, let me win it.
Correct.
You know, and that's what happened at the end. But Wilkes, I do feel sorry for Steve Wilkes.
And let me piggyback on that because, look, a lot of people, my wife included, they say, oh, wow, this first half was so boring. I loved it because it was a defensive chess match. And what Coach Wilkes did, what Steve Spagnuolo did for Kansas City, they were meeting punch for punch, back and
great.
forth.
Yep.
It was fantastic football to see them be able to disguise their matchups, but then cover them at the right time and cover them at the same time. Now, the offensive coordinators on both teams kind of adjusted well in that second half, but we still saw a great job by both of these defenses, and I have to tip my hat to Steve Wilkes because he really was very, very close to that ring, and I feel for him because I think he had a great opportunity here in Carolina, an opportunity that, we won't get into that can of worms of why he's still not here, but it was a great opportunity in Carolina, and you want to see a guy succeed like that. I want to ask you a question here because you touched on a little bit, Scott. Patrick Mahomes, you said at the end of the day, you'll finish with about half a dozen of these. Obviously, he's chasing Tom Brady. He's chasing the GOAT. If you look at his trajectory, 2 NFL MVPs, 3 Super Bowls, 6 straight AFC championships, 6 Pro Bowls. I mean, his trajectory, barring injury, and barring, obviously, free agency and everything happens. Let's not forget there's about 28 of these players free agents next year, including one Chris Jones. He's right now on pace to leap those numbers that Tom had in New England and even in Tampa.
Sure. I mean, Brady, what did he end up with? 7, I guess,
Yeah.
once you
7.
count the Tampa Bay one.
7,
I don't. It's very hard to get to 7.
Oh, God, yes.
I mean, he's still only at 3 right now, but he's only 28 years old, I
Right.
believe, and he's a more flashy and exciting player than Brady. I don't think he's quite as efficient as Brady was just a robot. He was He was a machine.
I agree.
Mahomes is more like of this. I mean, he's just, you don't know what's coming next. But that is the guy that the Panthers want Bryce Young to be, right? I mean, everyone wants Patrick Mahomes, and he's not going anywhere. You're right. The cast around him. Even now, though, he's doing it without Tyreek Hill. Think how
Which is
good they were with
fantastic.
Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
Which is
now,
fantastic.
they had those wide receivers are average at best.
At best.
With the
At
exception
best.
of Kelsey,
Other than
Pacheco,
Kelce.
and Mahomes,
Yeah.
there's movement, but
The
those
rest of
3 are
it's
staying.
average, and he's still getting it done.
Yeah.
So, and with Andy Reid, who's a fantastic coach.
Oh, yeah.
Offensive genius.
Fantastic coach. Now, I thought he kind of got away with not doing anything with the Kelsey bump. I thought there should have been more discussion about that during the telecast. I thought that was pretty big time. I mean, I saw Kevin Green one time grab an assistant coach here and end up getting suspended
yes.
for a game, and they just kind of blew that off. But in any case, Andy Reid is an incredible play caller. I thought the best team won.
All right, we can't go any further. The football season's over.
We
Now
can
the
talk all day.
Now the focus has to turn towards the Carolina Panthers. Your early feelings on Dave Canales as the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers.
I like Dave Canales' enthusiasm.
Yeah, yes.
I like his youthfulness. I like his social media engagement.
Yes.
I like the way he comes out as an absolute fireball pretty much all the time. And this is apparently the way he is. I've talked to some people around him. This is not fake. That's the way he's going to be. All that said, it all matters with. Honestly, Dan Morgan in the next 3 months is way more important than David.
I was just going to say, I want to hit you on that because, look, like you guys just mentioned, we're going to see what Canales does once the players are on the field and we develop. A lot of the conversation has been, the owner, Mr. Tepper, he's too involved. He's too brought into every single decision. I was intrigued, and then I loved the fact that they brought in Brant Tillis to be kind of like the numbers guy to Dan Morgan. Given what you've already known and seen since the Tepper regime, if you will, came in, this is something new. This is something different that we haven't seen. Should that be something that gets people optimistic about maybe a new Tepper leaf?
Possibly. I mean, they are really trying to, they brought in a consulting firm this time.
There you go.
They're trying. I think Dave Tepper is trying to pull back. Now, whether he actually succeeds in doing that, I have my doubts. I've written a lot about this. I don't like him meddling with the Panthers. I wish he would step back, and I hope that that's what we're going to see this year because it's not working the other way.
Correct.
Exactly.
So I think Tillis is, to your point, Jorge, Tillis is a good sign. And then Canales and Morgan, I mean, they've got a trio of smart people there. Let them do their jobs. And the thing is, they got to develop Bryce Young. Until that really happens, they're going to have to set him up for success this year. I thought they set him up for failure last year. But until that happens, all the rest of it doesn't matter too much. But if Bryce gets better and these other, I think they're at least putting in a structure in place that could work.
Gotcha. We have to take our first break here on the show. When we come back, we talk Charlotte Hornets as new ownership is already starting to shake things up.
Black History Month, and we want to share your story.
Our story is a part of multiple national histories.
We'll celebrate our cultural beginnings and how we continue to thrive in the Carolinas today.
There are places here that do it bomb, so we just want to add on to that.
Connecting with Black icons along the way.
When you lead well, people will emulate what you did.
But the story is still being written, and it includes you. Then, now, and forever, Thursday at 7 on WBTV.
It's a beautiful day out, Dad. Let's go.
There's another sunny day in the forecast.
Dad, do you want to go for a walk?
High temperature right around. Saturday is the first alert weather day. Several rounds of showers and thunderstorms coming up from the south.
It's total opposite. It's total opposite. You know, when you're in Charlotte, you kind of used to losing. It's kind of your DNA. And it sucks to say that because how much of a competitor I am. But over here, it's just, you know, it's the total opposite. Nobody wants to lose. Nobody is you know, it's fine with it. And I think today was super helpful with the video. And, you know, us talking to one another. And I think, you know, hopefully tomorrow we can turn things around. But I think everybody's no secret. Everybody know the difference between organizations, some organizations in the league, and how well some people take winning, the culture of things. But this is the top.
Yeah, joining us now is the man who got that soundbite right there, Wes Goldberg, NBA writer and co-host of Locked On Heat. Wes, thanks for joining us here on The Point After as we talk winning cultures and losing cultures. Wes, this is definitely an attention-grabbing soundbite. Talk more about the culture there in Miami, started by Pat Riley and lived out by Coach Eric Spoelstra.
Sure. I mean, you know, the Heat culture has become so much of a trending topic that the Heat designed their uniforms after it this year. So, look, if you ask the Heat what they mean when they say Heat culture, they talk about hard work, hard practices, and holding players accountable. And part of that is, you know, if the team loses, that when they practice the next day and review the loss, they're very willing to call each other out and point to what was wrong and what they can correct. And so this isn't a team that shies from losing or shies away from those kinds of conversations. And I think that's a big part of this team's culture is it's winning above all else. That's the priority. It's above ego. It's above statistics. It's above any of that stuff. It doesn't matter how they won. It doesn't matter why they won. It doesn't matter who had the most points. It doesn't matter. The point is that they're going to do everything that they can to win. And when you hear Terry Rozier say that only a few days after getting traded to Miami from Charlotte, a team that has, I don't need to tell you guys this, but the worst winning percentage in the league over the last 10 years, you know, you could sense that he was picking up on that even within a few days of being in that building.
Was Jorge Andrés here in Charlotte, and I want to touch, obviously we're talking about two franchises though, that one is a rebuilding franchise and one is a franchise that has been used to being in the postseason, has been used to making those type of runs for NBA titles. I got to see that culture difference firsthand there with Pat and Eric in Miami, but with that also comes egos. And look, I like the way Terry's been playing in Miami, and maybe once he gets his shooting a little bit better, and obviously he comes back and becomes healthy, he can make a bigger impact. However, that ego check and those ego managements that we have to kind of see, how is that going to play out with Terry in Miami?
So far, all the reports have been great. I mean, his teammates love him. The coaches love him. They appreciate how hard he's been working to kind of get up to speed during the middle of the season. He went like a week and a half without even getting a chance to practice with the team just because of the nature of the NBA schedule. So, look, I don't know that the ego part of it is going to play into it. And look, this is not a team. This is not a locker room without ego. Look no further than the guy at the top of the roster and Jimmy Butler. I think it's fair to say that he thinks very highly of himself with all the predictions and all these things that he makes, the championship proclamations and all these things. Bam Adebayo certainly has an ego. He thinks he should have been the Defensive Player of the Year several times already. He has not won the award. He's not shy about sharing that. Tyler Hero is somebody who isn't shy about talking about how he thinks he should be in the conversation with some of the top young scorers in the NBA. Whether any of that stuff is true or false doesn't really matter. The difference is, okay, you can have your own individual ego, and Terry Rozier is somebody who certainly has that, but can you put that aside when it comes to winning time? And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's going to happen 100% of the time, all the time. I just think I think that's what the coaching staff expects from Terry Rozier. I think that they did their due diligence before they made this trade, making sure that he would fit sort of into that culture. And Terry Rozier has been open about the fact that he has appreciated the Miami Heat organization from afar for a very long time. I mean, his childhood icon was Dwayne Wade, and I think it means a lot to him to get to play in that same uniform as his childhood hero. So, yeah, egos are definitely a part of the game. Nobody's doubting that. It's just, okay, when it comes to winning time, when it comes to crunch time, when it really does matter, can you put that stuff aside and just go for the win?
Wes, last question here, and don't spare any feelings here. We're living it, we're here in Charlotte, but as an outsider, what is the perception of the Charlotte Hornets?
I think Terry Rozier kind of nailed it, didn't he? When he kind of says it's a losing DNA, it does feel like it's really hard to put together some really strong consecutive seasons. Y'all made the playoffs like 2-3 years ago, and there's definitely been years of sort of hovering over 500. But in terms of putting together something sustainable, it's just everybody knows that it's dodged that organization for a very long time. They've made some questionable decisions. I also think that there's definitely some things that were unfortunate that happened to them. I mean, LaMelo Ball, the injuries with him over the last couple of years, you could just look at that as something that's sort of short-circuited trying to move forward. But even you go further in the past with somebody like Kemba Walker, who beloved in that city, awesome player, great college career, amazing NBA career. But I don't think anybody is kidding themselves and say when you say like he wasn't like a top star. Like you weren't winning a championship if Kemba Walker was your best player, but he was too good to just give up on, especially in an organization that was starved for a star and a homegrown talent like that. And so you kind of were doing the Kemba Walker thing for a long time, and you were winning like 40 plus games a year, but it was never going to be a serious contender if Kemba Walker was the team's best player. And so you kind of got stuck in between a rock and a hard place in that one. And now with this recent rebuild with LaMelo, he showed some flashes and some signs early in his career, and now you're dealing with the injuries. But I'll tell you what, Brandon Miller, I like everything I've seen from him. If I'm Charlotte, I look at this as a huge win, regardless of the losses piling up this season. I think you found a franchise player in Brandon Miller in the draft here. Yep. Huge move to draft him over Scoot Henderson, who's struggling right now in Portland. We'll see how those careers play out, but I don't think there's any doubt that Brandon Miller is the kind of guy that you want to build around in today's NBA. And so if I'm looking forward for Charlotte, I feel really good about that at least.
Hey, Wes, man, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here on The Point After. Have a good one there, man.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we're going to bring Scott Fowler back in, and I'm going to start right there with that, the perception of Charlotte. Is that maybe one of the biggest things that Gabe Plotkin and Rick Schnall have to do, is to change the perception of this franchise from being losers, basically, and having Terry Rozier walk away and say, hey, man, it's just accepted? Is that probably the biggest thing that they need to overcome before they can really turn this thing around?
I think so. I think it all works in tandem. Yeah. You get better players, and you become a better team, and then you overcome that. I think what the problem here, losers is one way to say it. Another way to say it is irrelevancy. They are just so irrelevant. Yes. I think when people think about the Charlotte Hornets, the thing in the NBA, they don't think about the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets are just over there on the side like a team like Detroit or something, where they're not even in any conversations other than trades. When it's time to try to pick them clean or something, other than that, you don't even think about the Hornets. That's got to change. They do have some pieces. Brandon Miller, I think, is a stud.
Yes. Look, I want to be the optimistic guy, at least for a little bit here. Look, we have the news that Mitch Kupchak is stepping down, so it starts there. First of all, when we look at rebuilding this team, because that's what this team is doing. They are rebuilding. You mentioned Brandon Miller. I think that guy has a great future. LaMelo Ball, somebody with the Rozier trade, they got some draft capital in that. 2 future first-round lottery picks. That's something that they can build around. They're doing infrastructure, both on the inside and on the outside of the arena. These new owners want this team to turn it around. And in today's win now mentality, in today's be relevant now mentality, the credit that I'll give is that the speed is at least matching that. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's already happening halfway into a season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're trying to, it's sort of like they're driving down the road at 60 miles an hour trying to change the tires while they're still on the road. It's very difficult what they're doing, but that's okay. This season is a wash anyway.
Exactly.
Correct.
It doesn't matter. So let's throw in all these new guys. They played all 5 at the same time that they got in that trade the other night. I thought that was a good idea because it's like, okay, let's see which ones are going to work out, which ones won't, because not all of them will. Yeah. And then you got a guy like Micic or whatever, and you're like, who is that guy? He's got like a dad bod, and he's a 30-year-old rookie, and he's just lighting people up.
Career high, 18 points.
Have you seen Leaky Black come out there and then just play some great defense and get some more minutes than anybody expected?
Sure. I mean, they're just all a work in progress right now, especially with LaMelo, as long as he's out. And I was very glad they traded Gordon Hayward. That needed to happen.
Absolutely.
Rozier, I had mixed feelings about because he was a warrior. Now, one reason he said that about the DNA is because Rozier never got used to losing. He couldn't stand it, hated it.
That's great, though.
Yeah, that was
more
great.
of that.
And he's gone now. Yeah. But he was very tradable, and I understand why they did it. They're trying to, restructure things on the fly. I will say with the owners, they're here a lot. They are very involved. They are basketball junkies, normal guys who happen to make billions in hedge funds.
Yep.
And here they are. So I think I like what I've seen from them so far.
Now, I'll ask you this real quick. Some of the names that have been rolling around, the Alton Brands, the Mike Gamseys, even assistant general manager in Washington, Travis Schlenk. Who do you think this ownership group is going to start to target to be that top piece that eventually will replace one Mitch Kupchak?
Well, I don't know. I can't pretend to say which one of those, but I will say that their connections in Atlanta are substantial, and I believe it'll probably be someone they've worked with before that they're comfortable with, and that'll be the way it starts. I think what they're looking at here is a 2 or 3 year rebuilding process. I mean, those draft picks you mentioned, Jorge, are very good. They also don't come in here until at earliest 2027.
Correct.
So you got to get. But they're going to have probably a top 5 pick this year in June. And so if you can get one more piece there, I mean, they could be better, at least mediocre pretty quickly.
Let me ask you this. And for years, they've been saying, we need to draft well, we need to draft well, we need to draft well. Where I think this team has failed and come up way short is putting great veterans in that locker room. They're talented.
Sure.
I mean, the Charlotte Hornets are talented. They just don't have that veteran, that glue that keeps that thing together and shakes that locker room when things get out of hand, like a Marvin Williams. I mean, I can go down to P.J. Brown. I mean, just Jamal Mashburn, Glenn Rice. I mean, like
somebody that's been there.
They have failed to put that in that locker room.
Like Udonis has someone with the Heat.
Correct. Somebody that's been there, that knows how to walk the walk, and now maybe because of age, minutes are limited to talk the talk, but they can at least help these young players.
Marvin Williams was like that, sort of, and there was a guy a long time ago back in the early days of the Hornets named Kenny Gaddison.
Yes.
He was great at that. Shake him up, let him have it. I mean, you can't be afraid of LaMelo Ball's star power. You have to make sure LaMelo Ball is also going to play defense and everything else. So yeah, they need that because they do have some talent. They do just need more talent as well. But I like Mark Williams. Yes. I think if he would just get healthy again, I think Mark Williams is finally a rim blocker, a rim guy that they have not had for a long time.
And I think he's kind of exceeded expectations. People saw Mark Williams coming in here as a piece just because of that piece needed, right as a rim protector, but he's exceeded expectations.
He's pretty good if he'll stay healthy.
On a bad team, yes.
Right, yep. I think there's some stuff there that could work. I think, their trajectory to me is a little more. They're a little in front of the Panthers. There's not much of a difference, honestly. Panthers were the worst in the NFL right now. The Hornets are about the 4th worst in the NBA. We're not in the best era of Charlotte pro sports right now, but it will get better, I promise. Yeah.
Well, look, we talked football. We talked Super Bowl 58. We talked some hoops. We talked some Charlotte Hornets. We got to give love to the folks on the pitch as well. Charlotte FC earlier today, Monday on QC Morning, Kristen Miranda was able to unveil exclusively the new kits for Charlotte FC. There they are. You see them on your screen. These are going to be not only are they great kids, looking kids, but they tie all of both Carolinas together. If you look at them, you get a little bit of, and here it is, here's mine, a little bit of mountains, a little bit of water. You get from coast to coast, from east to west, from north and south. You get a little bit of that. At first, I'm gonna go around all of us here to give our take on this. At first, because I know I talked to producer Kelsey, she loves him. I'm not a horizontal line guy. That's just not me. It just makes you look wider. I'm more of a vertical line guy. But I do like the mountain and the water look. What do you guys think?
I like it. It's different.
Scott?
First time I'm seeing it, I'm getting a good look at it here. I actually think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I like the. I like that it's not. I'm sort of with you on horizontal lines. That's why pinstripes are on suits vertically. But the fact that it's jagged, it's not just like basic horizontal lines like the Houston Astros. That was a cool uniform too.
Absolutely.
But this is, I like
it's
that.
It's like the mountain. It's like the mountain throwback.
That's one of North Carolina's true strengths, right? Beaches and mountains.
Beaches, foothills, mountains. We love it.
Yep. Well, it'll be here before you know it, February 24th. Right. I guess you were putting ranks of teams. They're closer to a championship than
any team.
All the Panthers.
Oh gosh, they made the playoffs last year.
Exactly.
That's
and
right.
then they fired the coach. That's the most Charlotte thing of all time.
Hey, listen, they want to win now. I guess a playoff berth wasn't enough.
With Coach Dean Smith.
Yes, Coach Dean Smith, who's got just a terrific accent. And I went to his opening press conference.
Yeah.
Seems super knowledgeable about it. Who knows how good they are? Their preseason results have actually been pretty good.
2-0 in the Coachella Valley.
Yeah, so I think I'm looking forward to their season. They are a team that, who knows, they easily could make a run.
And people get excited. That stadium gets packed. People get
love
excited about it.
They love that stuff.
Well,
the thing I will say this: you talking about changing tires 60 miles an hour. They're getting rid of DPs while they're in training camp. They've only got one right now.
That wasn't great.
They got rid of their leading scorer in training camp. So we'll see how this
he
thing.
kind of left them.
Exactly. That's true. That's true.
They would have preferred to keep it.
I'm sure he was like, I'm out, guys, but thanks.
So, like I said, February 24th, NYCFC. They have one more game in the Coachella Valley Invitational this Saturday, and then they come back, and then I think it's 11 days from now. We've got soccer.
I mean, we'll be cooking. Soccer's coming.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of The Point After. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Friday with some more Panthers talk as we get you ready for the NFL draft and free agency.